Thanks very much. I think I'm going to stand on this side. Well, first of all, thanks to Target for inviting me along today to speak to you. I'm conscious that I'm all that stands between us and lunch, so I will endeavour to stick to my 20 minutes. What I'm going to take you through is Skanska's approach to sustainability, and to show you hopefully how important the producer responsibility that Pete mentioned and that Peter articulated so well just now, how important that is to us achieving our goals. And I'm going to do that with reference to one of our projects, another hospital project, the Bartson London Hospital project. So a little bit about us to start with. Most of you may be familiar with who we are. We're a Swedish contractor, been established in the UK for around 10 years, employ around 55,000 people globally, around 5,000 in the UK. Our home markets are the Nordics, obviously the UK, Eastern Europe, Latin America and North America. Unfortunately not Australasia yet, so my secondment's going to have to wait a little while. In the UK, with the business stream that dominates is our construction arm. That's probably what you know us for, but 3/4 of the business actually is as a developer. And the residential development arm has just arrived in the UK, so we're going to embark on some residential developments fairly soon. Our philosophy as a company revolves around both our code of conduct and what we call our 5 zeros. Safety, as Roger highlighted during his talk, is very important to our industry. So that's a key zero. Zero environmental incidents, just as important. Zero ethical breaches, which has been brought into sharper focus lately, especially with the bribery and corruption legislation. Zero loss-making projects, and that's about making sure that not just Skanska are profitable, but also the suppliers that work for us. Because a profitable supply chain is the only one that really works. And our newest one, zero defects, which is about getting the quality of the building right. And that's inherently important to reducing waste and sustainability. So some of the drivers that led us to look at sustainability and really embark on that journey, and these will be familiar to you all, although the risks and opportunities that come with them probably vary from organisation to organisation. Population, as we all know, is expanding rapidly, and the result of that is that the amount of land available to us per hectare, per capita is reducing. So the pressure on natural resources is increasing. Construction industry obviously uses natural resources very heavily. The pattern of where that population growth is happening is changing. Increasingly we're becoming an urban population. So across the world people are moving increasingly to cities. There's going to be an increased need for infrastructure development in urban areas. The balance is different between developed and developing countries. The megacities around the world increasingly are going to be in the developing world rather than in the developed world. So if we look at population growth in general, in Europe population is going to start to decline against that overarching pattern of an increasing population. So the ageing population that's talked about a lot in the UK at the moment, something that's already seen in the Nordics. Again, we're going to see that in the UK, and from a construction point of view, there could be a greater need for healthcare services and things like that. So opportunities come with some of these drivers. Climate change, obviously a massive influence, and we'll all have our own opinions on it. I think one thing is certain is that there's growing kind of a legislative drive for business to take it seriously and do something about it. So whatever our opinions of what risk it represents, we need to respond to the challenges of a low-carbon economy. Water is an issue that's been long talked about as the next kind of major issue, something that needs to be thought about. Perhaps something that doesn't come naturally to us in the UK, but London, the South East, where we are now, is more water scarce than the Sudan per capita of population. So actually it is an issue that's going to become more important to us. And waste, we've touched on that a number of times today. Construction is inherently a very inefficient industry. We produce somewhere in the region of 90 million tonnes of waste in the UK, which puts us at the top of the list in terms of main waste producer from industry. The 10% vinyl waste that Peter talked about, actually that's probably one of the best performing trades on a construction site, just to put that into perspective. So what's our response to some of these drivers? Well, this is Johan Karlström, our CEO, and when he took the job a couple of years ago, he set out his vision very clearly. He sees green as not just kind of morally important, but actually a fantastic opportunity for us to win work. So he set out very clearly that he wanted Skanska to be regarded as a leading green project developer and contractor. And there's a business rationale behind this. There's research in the marketplace that demonstrates that green buildings, obviously the operating cost is less on a more energy efficient building, but also the value of that building is more, rental rates can be higher, that building is less likely to be empty. So it's a very strong kind of commercial business driver for delivering green buildings. So our aspiration as a construction company is to have zero impact. And on the product side, our buildings, what we aspire is that there'll be zero net energy, carbon neutral, that we'll use zero hazardous materials in their construction, and that there'll be zero water discharge. And what we mean by that is that we won't use drinking water where drinking water doesn't need to be used. So we won't flush toilets with drinking water. Zero hazardous materials, clearly that echoes very strongly with Target's sustainability agenda that Peter just outlined. So we're both coming from the same direction. In terms of the construction process, we strive to have zero environmental incidents on site, but we're also aiming for zero waste. At the moment, that's zero waste to landfill. In the longer term, we'd like to think we could achieve zero waste. And by doing all of this, we believe we future-proof not only the product that we deliver, but ourselves as a business. So we articulate this thinking in what we call our journey to deep green. And we show it on what we call our colour palette. There are 4 key themes to our strategy, and they cover energy, carbon, materials, and water. And vanilla, as we call it, is our starting point on this journey. And this represents compliance with legislation, minimum local codes and standards. So if we deliver a building that complies with building regulations on energy efficiency, it sits in the vanilla part of the spectrum. What we call deep green is where we have zero impact. This is where we'd like to get to. And this is about having zero impact. So delivering carbon neutral buildings, not producing any waste, not incorporating any hazardous materials. And the way we get there is a green area. Of course, it's a moving target. Legislation develops all the time. So a building that we complete today soon slips into the vanilla section as kind of expectation and legislation develops. So I'm just going to illustrate one of these points with reference to one particular project, the Barton London project. Similar to the Birmingham Hospital, it's a PFI scheme. In total, it's a 42-year concession. It's £1 billion worth of work over 10 years. We're halfway through the build programme. And each hospital, Bart's Hospital at the top, which is near St Paul's Cathedral, and the Royal London here, which is in Whitechapel in East London, both of them proceed in 3 phases. The first phase of Bart's was completed in March last year, and we complete the first phase of the Royal London later this year. So if we look at our heading of zero waste to landfill, this is one area that the project focused on in particular. And I put this slide up here, not expecting you to read it, but just to illustrate the causes of waste. So while there isn't just one cause of waste, there isn't just one solution. What is certain is that if the first time that we think about waste is about calling in a skip, then we've already lost that fight in terms of trying to minimise our waste. So the waste hierarchy, I'm afraid I don't have the up-to-date version that Pete showed us, but I think the principles remain the same. If we use this as our guide, it's a good starting point for trying to minimise our waste. And if I focus just on the reuse, which is relevant to the kind of flooring sector, Roger's already outlined this. The take-back scheme that Target offered is extremely important in terms of us diverting waste from landfill. And that closed-loop recycling helps us elevate our waste management from the lower echelons of that hierarchy into a more favourable position. And the flooring sector, Target in particular, have certainly taken a lead on this. And Roger, I think, would probably agree that we've seen a lot more manufacturers coming to us now with similar schemes. So it's been a shining example of good practice that's now being taken up by more trades. And in terms of the logistics, we're able to, I think, enhance how it worked a little bit on the Barts project. Traditionally, the relationship exists between the manufacturer and the construction site, and that can present you sometimes with difficulties on a site. If you're trying to hoard a load of offcuts of vinyl, space is always at a premium on a construction site. Insurers get pretty nervous about walking around a site that's where the housekeeping is perhaps not as good as it could be. So what we were able to do on the Barts project is use an off-site consolidation centre, a logistics centre. All of our material deliveries were made into this off-site warehouse, and they were able to control the input of materials into the site. What that also enabled us to do was to drip feed material offcuts back through the chain at the logistics centre, which means we're able to bulk them up in a higher quantity at that off-site centre, making it financially more viable and easier to return them to the manufacturer. This is a technique that's used a lot in automotive, in retail. The take-up in construction has been slow. We are quite a conservative industry, I would say. But for me, this model does represent the kind of future of logistics and material delivery to construction, especially in urban areas such as London. So in terms of our diversion from landfill, 96%, Roger put up similarly impressive figures. While it's important that we do this, at the same time we shouldn't get too carried away with this, because our focus as an industry needs to be on waste minimisation rather than just diversion from landfill, because after all we are a business, and if one thing is true, it's that the further we slip down the waste hierarchy, including sending material for recycling, that incurs us more costs as an industry. So if we can avoid waste in the first place, we're likely to be keep the commercial side of the business happier. So how did we do on the Barts in London project? Well, these are some of our previous hospital projects. And you can see this is the project value, and then this is the percentage of that project value that we spent on waste. So a fairly static figure in terms of what we were spending. On the Barts in London project, we're able to drop that figure quite substantially. We are halfway through the programme, but it's looking good so far. So waste minimisation, think about waste early on, does work. Schemes like the fluorine take-back certainly help us enhance our offering. In terms of the future, just one message really. We should always ask ourselves if there is a reason not to build green. We're being driven in that direction very strongly. It's coming both from our supply chain and from our clients. So this is what we need to deliver. Thank you very much.